Who doesn't want to run an epic D&D campaign like Critical Role that can take years to conclude? It's like living out your own Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones fantasy with awesome story arcs and character development. As great as these long, continuous campaigns can be, they do have some issues, and the main one mostly is that they rarely make it to the end. The campaign falls apart and players quit before it reaches its conclusion, and I think this is due to a couple of reasons. Mostly that it's not very flexible. It's hard for players to swap out characters if they get tired of what they're playing, and trust me, players get tired of what they're playing sometimes. It's also challenging to swap out players. You meet a new player that you want to introduce into your campaign, it can be pretty challenging to throw them into the middle of this story. And at the same time, if you have a player that wants to take a needed break, which can be important to avoid player burnout, what do you do while they're gone? Do you try to make sense in the campaign for why they're not there and continue playing without them, and then you have to explain any major story points to them once they get back? Or do you put the campaign on pause while they're gone? While pausing the campaign to give everyone a break may seem like a good idea, this is also how a lot of campaigns end. You temporarily pause it and you just never go back to playing it. Now, that also might happen because these long, continuous story campaigns are a bit of a commitment, and that can be a problem if a new adventure module or source book comes out and you want to try to pull those into your campaign, or you, the dungeon master, or your players get these cool ideas that you want to incorporate, but they don't really fit into your pre-planned adventure, and waiting 6 months for it to finish before you do some of these cool ideas can be a little bit challenging, especially if where you're at in your story is a little bit boring because you're fighting an orc army, so you just keep fighting orcs and it's the same stuff happening, it's the same scenery. That can take away from the fun a bit. And the last issue that I often see with this style of campaign is that it's a lot harder for the players to have an impact on the story and specifically what they're doing and where they're going, because certain things have to happen. If the story says you need to go fight these orcs, that's what you have to do. And if you want to go explore dungeons and other stuff, that can be kind of hard to do that while you're supposed to be fighting these orcs. If Frodo would have been like, man, I'm tired of sneaking around Mordor carrying this ring, I want to go explore elven cities, that would have been really awkward. So how can we fix this? How can we make it easier for players to take breaks when needed, swap out characters when they want, bring in new players? How can we do that while playing D&D? Instead of running a campaign with a continuous story, try running a campaign that is a series of independent adventures. This episodic style of running a campaign will function more like a sitcom, where if you miss an episode here or there, it doesn't matter all that much. You're not going to be lost in the story. And I do similar things in my episodic style D&D campaigns. The one I'm doing right now, we ran a dungeon crawl. Then after that, one of the players wanted to do a murder mystery, so we ran into a noir style murder mystery. And so if Spelljammer comes out and I really want to try that, maybe an entire Spelljammer campaign isn't right. Instead, we play 2 months worth of Spelljammer adventures before we get dropped off back at our planet and continue as normal. My adventures are typically 2 to 4 sessions, and so it's not a huge commitment, and we can always continue doing more of those styles if we like. It's very open, and the players can have a lot of feedback. If the players say, hey, we really like this, I can continue throwing those style adventures at them. If they don't like it, we don't have to do any more of them. I floated the idea of doing a Western theme adventure after the noir one. People didn't seem that interested in it, so we're not doing it. But we could have if they wanted to. That is one of the really cool things that you can do with this style of campaign, where it's not just one big continuous story, it's independent adventures. It lets players take breaks when needed. If they miss a couple adventures, they can come back, and when they jump back into it, they're not really missing out on a whole lot. Of course, there will be major episodes where, you know, if somebody dies, things like that happen. But for the most part, if a player takes a break for a month, there probably won't be too much that they missed out on. At the same time, if you meet new players that you want to bring in, it's very easy to do so. The party, you know, meets a new adventure that they want to include into their future adventures, and there's not a big story that they need to know about. When they take up the next quest, that's the next quest, and they can fully immerse themselves in that adventure and into the story with the party. Not all tables are the same, and different people want different things. There will be tables that want a continuous story, but if you're struggling keeping a campaign running, or your campaigns are just getting boring, I highly encourage you to try out running an episodic style campaign. They're my favorite way of playing. As I said before, 2 to 4 sessions on average for each adventure, and I do milestone leveling up, so players level up after each adventure. If you like this video or got some value out of it, hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and I'll see you next time.